Hello friends, I'm Fuzzy Viper Shark, and today I'm doing something a little different. This is going to be a long, unedited, minimally edited video where I'm just going to ramble and play F1 22 because this is the reason why I did not edit the last Mexico City Sharks video. I have it recorded, I just didn't edit it. Because I'm playing this. This is going to be a longer form video, probably well over 2 hours. So, just sit back, relax. I'm going to ramble the entire time. Put this on while you sleep, listen to it at work, whatever. But yeah, I'm just going to catch you up on the speed of what's going on here. So, this is F1 22, my career, minimally edited, barring any technical difficulties or cat interference. So my career, like I said, just catch you up on the speed. I am Team Zvlaki Quicks. We are in 5th place right now in the constructor standings, and we are in Abu Dhabi. Now, if you're halfway interested in this video, I'm going to assume that you know something about F1, but I'm going to talk as if you don't. So right now in this day and age, there are 10 teams. And when I say this day and age, there's been 10 teams on the grid for a long time. But in my career in F1 22 and other F1 games, you can make a team and pretty much build it up from the ground up. And I'm on my 2nd season, and this is the last race of the 2nd season. And when I play, I do full-length seasons, full-length races, full-length practices, qualifying, all the good stuff. I want the full experience. And a weekend takes me about 5 hours. I'm just doing the race in this video, so I already did... Oh no, I didn't do any of this stuff yet. So maybe I'll do some highlights from like practice and qualifying, maybe, but mostly it's going to be the race and then me rambling about this. But why this is so important and why I really wanted to show this is because, so last year, I'm pretty sure we got 10th? Can I look at that? So you can see the two highlighted people. Jason Hill, that's me. That's not my real name. But that's just the character's name that I made. I chose Hill because Hill was one of those names that the announcers actually say when they announce your character. Because there's been a couple of Hills throughout F1's history. So I guess that's a name that the announcers have said they had him record. So Jason Hill is me, and again, I'm racing for my team that I made up, Zvlaki Quicks. That's Zvlaki Quicks, and I made that up because I wanted to use the lesser used letters on the keyboard. That's the reason why. And then my teammate is Yuri Vips. Raced in F3, I would imagine, because he was in F2. He's not currently racing this year, in the year of our Lord 2024, in any of the Formula categories, but regardless. Oh yeah, and Roy Nissany, that happened because... Oh yeah, I just had Roy for the first half of the season. His contract expired, and then I signed Yuri Vips for the latter half of the season. So last year, why can't I find out where we ended up? We had a total of 27 points, and that put us at 10th. I was right. It is 10th. We only beat Williams. Alexander Albon had 24 points. His teammate last year, Nicholas Latifi Williams, had 0. So doing some quick math, 27 is greater than 24. We got 10th. This year we are squarely in 5th place. We are not moving from 5th place. However, you'll see in the driver standings, I am only 6 points ahead of Lando Norris. Now, I am recording this and probably putting this up the day of, if not the day after, Monday, after the 2024 Austrian Grand Prix, which was a riot the last 8 laps of the race. And I'll get into that later, but I'm just explaining this right now. So I am 6 points ahead of Lando. I've been doing fairly well. We've made a lot of improvements. I'll show that. That according to our vehicle comparison, performance comparison, we're 4th. But we're currently 5th. So the way I do this is I try to make it as balanced as possible. I want as much of a realistic experience as possible. So I like play on simulation. I do the whole full thing and everything. Except I play with the assists because I'm not that great, but I play at a higher AI level. I think I'm going to be doing 92 for this last race. And it goes to 110, I believe. So, basically what I'm shooting for is beating Lando Norris, or at least scoring no more than 6 less points than him, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to stay... I'm trying to stay 6 in the driver standings. We are squarely in 5th, Zvlaki Quicks, squarely in 5th, behind McLaren. But we could actually lose 2 places if we're not careful. We're 6 points ahead of McLaren's Lando Norris, and we are only 10 points behind or ahead of Ferrari's Carlos Sainz. So if we do poorly enough and we do, and the other 2 do well enough, we could actually drop to 8th place. Now I'll show some things throughout the season. We had a few DNFs. Those were all mechanical failures. We have 4 wins this season. For whatever reason, some tracks I do better than others. And I try to allocate the resources because you only get so many, like, engine parts, MGU-Ks, MGU-Hs, control electronics, gearboxes, turbochargers. You only get so many throughout the season, and if you take more than the allotted, you take penalties. So what I did was I took a bunch of penalties in the beginning and then try to stack my car's performance towards the latter half of the season, which I feel like has worked out fairly well for the most part with 4 wins, well, 3 wins and 1/3 in the last half of the season. Brazil, which was the last race we did, I got 20th out of 22. Typically there is only 20 racers in real life, but because there are 11 teams, each team gets 2 drivers. So there's 22, and I got 20th. And that was really my fault because I under-fueled the car. You have to fuel the car to make it go the entire length of the race. There are no more pit stops to refuel. You pit stop to change tires. If you're not familiar, I'm just explaining. Just rambling, really. But yeah, there's no more refueling in F1. They did away with that in like 2009, I think. 2008, 2009 was the last season. And I really underfueled the car, so I ended up pretty much running out of fuel at the end, and I was having engine problems as well. My engineer kept saying over and over again that I was having mechanical issues, but nothing was showing up on my HUD that was giving me problems. I was just losing performance. I don't know exactly. But hopefully we don't have those problems here in Abu Dhabi. I'm going to get into practice and qualifying and then just do some highlights of that. And then when we get into the race, just going to continue to ramble some more. Oh, this is kind of what I was looking for, too. This is our performance increase throughout the season. Each of the tracks that we've gone to, and then how our performance stacks up against the rest of the grid. Very close at the top, but we weren't always that close. If you could follow the purple line, we were quite far off the top 3, and then McLaren really got really close to us. But we are behind McLaren, and that is mostly because of Yuri Vips. I'm not going to put the entire blame on him, but he has only scored like a handful of points. 15. He's only gotten us 15 points. Whereas Lando Norris for McLaren has 171, and Daniel Ricciardo for McLaren has 92. I have 177. So it takes 2 to be on a team and win the Constructors, unless you're Red Bull right now, where you really only have one driver that's scoring you consistent points. Charles Leclerc, he has already won the Drivers' Championship. He won last race in Brazil. He only needed to be 5th or higher, or 4th or higher, I think, and he got 4th. So he got the exact amount of points that he needed, or the exact place he needed to win. And I'm pretty sure the Constructors is still up for grabs. Yes. Okay, so right now Red Bull is in front for the Constructors, and again, if you're not familiar with F1, how it works is that there is a Drivers' Championship and a Constructors' Championship. The drivers score points for themselves, and then the 2 combined drivers for the team goes towards the total Constructors' points. There is a Drivers' Championship. The driver with the most points is obviously the Driver Championship for that year. And then the Constructor with the most points, with their 2 combined drivers, wins the Constructors for that year. And they are not always the same. For example, in 2021, which was a big year for F1 in many ways, but the battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton went down to the wire. Still controversial, depending on who you ask. And that year, Max Verstappen won his first World Drivers' Championship, and while Mercedes was absolutely devastated, and Lewis Hamilton was devastated that he didn't get another Drivers' Championship, that was actually Mercedes' 8th World Constructors' Championship in a row. Before that, Lewis and Mercedes had dominated the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships for 7 years throughout the Turbo Hybrid era. And then 2021, which if I'm not mistaken was like the last year, quote unquote, of the Turbo Hybrid era. While Mercedes won the Constructors, the Driver Championship is kind of a more marketable aspect to Formula One and winning, so that's why it was such a big deal that even though Mercedes won the Constructors' Championship, it was huge that Lewis didn't get his 8th World Championship in a row, and Max won his first. So it's not always the same driver and their team. They don't always match up for who wins what championship. So the Constructors here, you can see the difference between Red Bull and Mercedes is 28 points. The points allotted are from 1st to 10th, and it goes 25, 18, 15, 10, or 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. And then there's a bonus point for the fastest lap if you are in the top 10 and have the fastest lap. If you are outside of the top 10 finishers and you have the fastest lap, nobody gets a point, an extra point for the fastest lap. So 28 points is not that far off. There are a ton of combinations where Mercedes can beat Red Bull in this last race, so we'll keep an eye on that as we go. So, a reminder, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell are driving for Mercedes, and they are 28 combined points behind Red Bull, whose drivers are Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. So if you're watching F1 in the year 2024, it's not all that different from this right now, because this is only a 2-year-old game. Some things get switched around, like Daniel Ricciardo is not driving for McLaren. That would be Oscar Piastri, but in this game, Oscar Piastri is driving for Alfa Romeo, and Alfa Romeo is no longer a team on the grid. They switched to Stake F1 Kick Sauber, or whatever you want to call it. Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly are teammates on AlphaTauri, but AlphaTauri is also no longer a team. They are currently the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, or VCarb, or just RB, or Racing Bulls. And Yuki's teammate is Daniel Ricciardo. So, I mean, it's not important. I'm probably just confusing those if you're still watching this and don't know the difference between this and reality. But what's important here, just focus, that we need 6 points. Those are my cats. We need to make sure that Lando does not score 6 more points than us, and that Carlos Sainz does not score 10 more points than us. I'll probably put a timestamp somewhere to just start, or where the beginning of the race starts, because I'm going on for I feel like 15 minutes now, so okay. I think that's everything I wanted to say about this. We are in a rivalry with Lewis Hamilton. It is all tied up. I don't know how there are 2 races remaining. I guess we're going to go into the beginning of the next year as well, but that is not important right now. Those are my stats. As Jason Hill, the American driver number 13. I guess let's go to the race weekend. Yeah, this is mostly going to see how well I'll be able to drive with this mic in my face. It's probably going to get shaken quite a bit, and I'm going to try to not hit the cord as much. Oh gosh, we're already off to a great start. Christ. Oh god, it's super distracting. I'm not used to this whatsoever. Okay, I'm doing race strategy. I already fucking forgot what I was doing. I'll get used to it. That's what practice is for. Oh my gosh.
Super job so far with great data. Stay focused.
Are we?
Program
Alright, that was good
complete
enough.
and a
Let's
job
go to
well
qualifying.
done.
Okay, 92. That is the AI difficulty I'm going with. Realistic. I have flashbacks on. I'm going to try to keep those to a minimum. Mostly because it makes the race take longer. Course simulation. I mean, I'm not going to get into low fuel mode. That doesn't really matter. Race starts, manual, course collisions on. Yes. I try to make it as close to real life as possible, except I do use a bunch of assists, so don't make fun of me for that. Of course, we have the soft tires on. This is Q1, one of 3 qualifying sessions. I'm assuming you're not familiar. Actually, I assume that you do know what's going on, but like I said, I'm going to talk to you like you don't. Q1 has all of the drivers on track and is 18 minutes long. in real life, there are 20 drivers. It's the bottom 5 that get eliminated. But with 22 drivers, if I'm not mistaken, it's the bottom 6 fastest drivers move on to Q2. After 15 minutes, the next slowest 5 get eliminated, so that we're only in the top 10. And that is Q3, and that is for pole. It does not necessarily matter where you end up in Q3 as long as you are not in the bottom getting eliminated. You could be the fastest one in Q3, or you could be the fastest in Q1 and still only qualify 10th overall. And why am I choosing 92? Why is that the AI difficulty I went with? Well, they say that a good AI difficulty for you is one where you are like a couple of tenths off of your teammate, whether plus or minus, whatever you want to go with. And I'm not necessarily watching the time in the upper left corner. You'll be able to see it, how I am doing compared to whoever's up on top. I'm not really looking at my peripherals. I'm paying attention to the track. My cat is biting my kneecap. Oh my gosh, that was awful. 17th. You're eliminated. I totally messed up. I have to restart this. I forgot, and I think it's too late. Okay. I'm going to show you. So remember. Go back. Okay, so these are all the parts that I used throughout the season, and remember when I said that I was having mechanical issues last time and it was not telling me why? It wasn't even telling me what was giving me issues. And I completely forgot to change these in the practice session because I wanted all brand new parts because I have all brand new parts. That's why I took so many penalties in the beginning of the season, because I wanted brand new parts towards the end of the season. Oh, and I'm going to have to change some things, and I'm going to lose a ton of time, because if I knew what part was giving me issues, I would just change that part. That I changed is fitted, I would imagine. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Okay, alright. So, I'm thinking that I got one of the issues out of the way, if not the sole issue out of the way. That's what I'm talking about. You see how close I am to Yuri Vips, my teammate? That's why I am at the difficulty that I am, because that's exactly what I wanted. So since we were in the top 15, we can move on to Q2. All the times reset. All your places reset. The time that was set last qualifying session does not count, and it means nothing in Q2. Alright, here we go. This is for our qualifying lap. Q2, we are behind Yuki Tsunoda. Presumably he is done qualifying, but we are chasing him anyway. Hopefully he gives us a nice tow. He gets out of our way. Make a pass on him. Going into the first hairpin. That wasn't a bad corner. First DRS zone. Hit that. not looking at the time, so I have no idea how far off pace I am. Coming into the first chicane, I don't know any of these names because I am a noob when it comes to Formula One, and I will explain that during the race. But we get out of that. That wasn't a bad apex hit, I believe. Second DRS zone, we open that back rear wing up. Ugh. And this is one of my least favorite parts. It's a really tight corner. Try to carry as much speed as you can into it. And then the final two turns can't go wide. You will pick up a lap deletion and a race to the short race to the line after the final turn, and we get 9th. We are, oh no, Yuri Vips got eliminated. He just got 11th. We were just barely under a 1/10 of a second ahead of him. Lando's in second place. He was less than a 1/10 off of Sergio Perez in Q2. Soft tires for the race sounds nice. But we will see where everyone sits. Oh, well, kind of went over time. A 122, a 123. I basically have to be under 123. Lando is currently at a 122.173. I'm just going to let it ride. I don't care. I'll start in 10th.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look.
Lando
at those
starts
who'll
in
be
third.
fronting the grid. Leclerc, Sainz, and Lando Norris. Welcome to the Yas Marina circuit for the finale of another thrilling Formula One season. It's been a breathtaking year, and we end it at a track that's been the scene of many glories and heartbreaks over its history. It's time to end the season in style. It's time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The drivers will be racing here at the Yas Marina circuit through 16 corners and a lap distance of around 3.28 miles. There are a few opportunities to pass with long straights and DRS zones in 2 places, so plenty of close racing, then plenty of speed and plenty of drama to be found in the laps ahead. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start.
He's starting first. The Ferrari's taking penalties because they were 1 and 2 in Q3. So
Perez, Ricciardo,
that's huge for Lando.
and Leclerc. They've taken a grid penalty.
Yep, Leclerc took a grid penalty, so we are starting
Bottas.
5th.
Hamilton. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Stroll.
I 100% missed where Yuri Vips was. Was he not in 11th or higher?
Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Yuri Vips, and
What?
Nicolas
I
Latifi.
wish I knew what penalties he was taking.
Albon.
As the owner of this team, you'd think they'd tell me.
Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid.
Carlos Sainz all the way at the back of the grid. Why was he even trying so hard in qualifying if he was starting, if he knew he was starting 21st?
It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Okay, this is the final race of the season. Just get out there and enjoy it.
All right. We got to pick our race strategy. I typically go for the longer running strategies. Less stops, I should say. But I want to see what I can do knowing that I have 2 soft tires to work with. It turns out not much. So I guess I'm just gonna go with soft, medium, medium. And if I make my second stint, first one on mediums, 23 laps as opposed to like the 16 that it gave me in the beginning. It says my projected race time will be 5 seconds quicker. So we'll go with that. Ooh, and if I extend my soft tire run, I can make it almost 6 seconds quicker. Oh. Alright, this is what we're going to go with. This is the fastest combination that I have found. This is going to be a minute. So I hope you just sit back and relax. And let's get into it. So I'll talk at you this entire time and through the formation lap. So, not that you'll be able to see it, but you may have heard some, if it's loud enough. I'm playing on a wheel. I used to play on controller, and I was actually better on controller for some reason. I would play on like 95 to 100 for AI difficulty. And then when I switched to wheel, it was kind of relearning a whole new skill. And I've done a season and a half. I want to say it was halfway through the first season. I switched to wheel. And I've been learning it since. The wheel is so much fun. It was totally worth it. Funny story, since I have time. When I bought the wheel, I bought it off Amazon. And I had no idea what I was looking for in a wheel. Like, I just wanted a wheel that was going to work with my PS4. I'm playing this on PS4. And, you know, give me the force feedback, the pedals. I didn't need the gear shift because I knew I was really only going to be using it for F122. But the gear shifter was like $30 more, and I was already spending almost $300, over $250 at least, for the wheel. So I'm like, whatever. I mean, I play a little bit of Gran Turismo, so I'm like, I could play around with that a little bit, but I mostly play F1. And I hardly use the gear shifter, but I think the wheel was a tremendous purchase. Like, it was great. If you like racing games and you don't have a wheel, I would highly recommend one. I don't have like a racing chair or anything. It's nothing crazy. Like, I'm just sitting in some office chair. Like, it's really not that big of a deal, but I do have fun with it. It's more immersive. I love it.
Let's make sure we get the edge on the surrounding drivers as the lights go out.
I am using automatic, so I don't use the paddle shifters, but you have to use the paddle shifters to navigate through some of the menus. And my left paddle shifter, so the one that I would actually be using to downshift, is going out a little bit. So it does not respond as much all the time. This is a long light. Lights out, and away we go. We are quickly getting off of the line, getting passed by... Oh, I can't even read that quick, but we're going around the outside. Turn 1, we're still in 5th place. Leclerc drops back behind us. Turn 2, fast, losing my mind. Oh my gosh. I said I was going to try to not use flashbacks, but... I mean, come on, I was spinning out of control. Spin out of control. I can't think of what Rise Again song that is off the top of my head right now because my mind is going a million miles an hour as we try to... He hit me. as I try to situate ourselves into this race. We're kind of losing the top 4 runners here, but forgot to put on my overtake through the first hairpin. Lando's getting off quite fast. Going down the first straight. No DRS for the first 2 laps in this game. Leclerc behind us. We might be the highest soft compound runners right now. So we have a little bit of pace there, but we're going to have to pit earlier than everyone else ahead of us. There is a yellow flag behind us. Green flag now. Resume racing. We are fine. There is Leclerc behind us, trying to make a move to the inside. Cut him off there. Slowly move over to the right side. Push him wide if he wants to go around us, and he is going outside. We stick to the racing line.
Rest of the race.
Try to keep him behind us as we try to gain as much ground as we can on those ahead of us. I just don't want to lose them. But they obviously have the pace. I definitely feel like we are at best a midfield team. We are in 5th, so that would make us a good 5th. A good midfield team. Like Ferrari is 3rd in constructors right now, but Charles Leclerc is the driver champion, and he is, of course, going to be a lot faster than us. He qualified pole, and the only reason he's behind us is because of penalties. So he might be getting around us at some point, but with the medium tires, he does have a little bit of a disadvantage there as far as grip goes, but our grip will fall off quicker than his. Just trying to keep him behind us as long as possible. We're quickly 2 seconds down Ricardo. And as we get settled in here, after the first couple of laps in this race, it is more of a marathon and not a sprint, because they actually have sprint races, and this is not that.
DRS is being enabled.
Okay, so now DRS is enabled. DRS is when the rear wing has a flap that opens up and actually reduces drag down onto the car as I spin out. Like I said, I was trying to not use flashbacks, but I mean, something like that is just embarrassing. So the rear wing of the cars has a flap that opens up in certain points of the certain points of the.
Are you okay? That was a big one. Confirm you're okay, please.
So the DRS is activated in certain points of the track when you are 1 second or less behind the car ahead of you. And the rear wing has a flap that opens up to reduce the amount of drag onto the car itself, and it makes the car have a higher top speed because there's less drag. DRS stands for Drag Reduction System. It is what it says. It reduces drag. So here comes Charles Leclerc. You'll be able to see his rear wing open up, and then as he brakes, it will shut. So you can keep your eye on that. And there it is. It is shut. So it does not necessarily matter what kind of tire compound he's on, because he has far less drag than we do, and now we get a dose of that as we go through the second DRS zone. Schumacher is behind us with it as well. I think we have the same engine. I'm pretty sure we have Ferrari engines. And Haas, Ferrari, obviously, also have Ferrari engines. So we have the same performance as far as our engines go, but everything else is up to the constructor. There are customers, and then there are constructors. You can still win the Constructors' Championship as a customer, but typically if you develop your own power unit, you're going to know more about it than whoever your customer is, and you'll be able to work around it. I should use some more overtake. you're going to be able to work with it a lot better than whoever your customer is, regardless of how good your power unit is. So we are a Ferrari customer. Here I go, losing grip again. Hello, Ford. That's already 3 flashbacks. That is fantastic. Just the race. So it's not looking good for us, as Lando is well down the track, but
7 seconds.
I don't know. Oh yeah, Carlos started way behind. He was in 21st, so he was 10 points behind us. And if he scores 10 more points than us, he would probably lose another position to Yuki. Goes over the curb. I absolutely bop him. So I don't think we are necessarily in danger of losing another place in the Drivers' Championship to Carlos Sainz because he's so far behind. That's not to say he couldn't get 10 more points than us, but it's much less likely to happen. He would have to get 4th, 5th. He would have to get 5th, and we would have to score 0 points. This is so hard. I'm usually like just listening to something as I race, like a podcast or some other YouTube video as I race. So I'm usually more in the zone than I am when I'm talking and racing. I'm a real big concentrator. So we'll just blame it on that. Usually I'm far better than this, but I'm just here to have a good time, just here for fun. And Abu Dhabi is not one of my favorite tracks to race on. And I found that the tracks that I like, I usually do better at. I don't know if that is I like the tracks because I do better on them, or I do better on them because I like them. There goes Max Verstappen behind us. We are losing many places. But remember, we really qualified 10th. So all of these cars we push in wide. So all of these cars that are passing us already qualified ahead of us. So this isn't completely abnormal. I would like to score points, even if we don't score as many points as we need to stay ahead of Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. The goal is always to score points with being a midfield team. And it's a long race yet. We still have 53 laps to go. So anyway, this is the... I can actually probably try to think about what I'm saying and racing. Woo! This is the first... what am I trying to say? This is the first game and first full season I've done with a Wii. Before that, the first game I started with was actually F1 2014. And I played it on controller because that's all I had. And when I played it, I was super new to F1 in general. I actually only got into F1 in 2020. And I've been obsessed with it since. And how I got into F1 was actually because of the pandemic. So, you know, if you're older than 6 years old, you remember the pandemic and how everything shut down, everything stopped. So the timeline of events for me was, okay, 2020, February 2020, the NFL Super Bowl happens, right? And Americans haven't even heard of COVID yet. But
Car in front is a second
right after that, a couple of weeks later, started the XFL. Bless. Soon after the Super Bowl in 2020, a few weeks after, started the XFL season. And I think that was the first year the XFL started after its first campaign in like the 90s, early 2000s. But anyway, I was super excited for this XFL. I'm a big football fan, and if you follow the Mexico City Sharks, I know way more about football than I do about Formula One. And so when I heard this XFL is coming, the Spring Football League, I was 100% on board. God, Verstappen, can you please accelerate out of the corner? Let's try this again.
Keep on him, he might make a mistake.
Yeah, he makes a mistake because how is he braking so much later than me? I'd get through this chicane without... I hate you. Guess I'll brake a little earlier because I can't get around him one way or another. Whatever. So XFL starts, and for some reason or another, one of the teams... What is going on?
All right, engine off, engine off.
For reasons, I pick a favorite team in the XFL, that being the St. Louis Battlehawks, and I'm like, okay, sweet, I'm 100% invested into this. Can't wait to see what comes of this. Like, it's basically, it's another professional football league, but and not really a rival to the NFL. It is. I like to think of it as more of as like a D league to the NFL. Just another way to have talent develop and get the skills and have a bridge into the NFL. But anyway, I'm watching it. And simultaneously, more news about the... I hate that corner so... Oh my gosh. This has to be like the worst track to do this on. That's a lie. There are far worse tracks to be doing this on. And some people do this for a living, basically. And I'm not even talking just driving F1. I mean, playing this game and interacting with their audience. And here I am just trying to talk to myself and play the game, and I can't even do that. Simultaneously, the XFL is happening while news about the COVID pandemic is going on. It's getting worse and worse. And ultimately, the XFL is put to a stop because of a pandemic. And it was probably a few months without sports. Zero sports. And like I said, I'm really only into football. I'm not a huge hockey, basketball, baseball fan. Like, it's mostly just NFL. As far as diehard following the league. But then I get wind that there's going to be a sport that's coming back and actually hosting events during the pandemic, the first to come back, and that was Formula One. And like, I've seen some of the cars before. I think they look super weird. I'm like, how are those cars even fast? I didn't really get it. But it was a sport, and I've my real only other exposure to motorsport on a regular basis was NASCAR, because my mom really liked NASCAR. She collected all the little die-cast cars, had them on display. She had a favorite driver, and I watched NASCAR races with her every Sunday after church. And I kind of grew out of it. I wasn't really all that interested, but I was familiar with NASCAR. And I loved racing games growing up. I always loved racing games. Need for Speed, specifically and mostly, was what I was into. Oh, and Mario Kart, of course, Mario Kart. Mario Kart DS was one of my favorite games as a kid. Absolutely loved it. Cousin and I played it all the time. Played it before school, in middle school, with all our friends and our DS's. We would, all link up and just race each other the 20 minutes before class started, the free time that we had. Loved Mario Kart. So I wasn't completely unfamiliar with racing. But Formula One was really new to me. Did not know everything, or did not really know anything about it. And when I watched that first race, I was instantly hooked. Like, this is incredible. And it wasn't arbitrarily picked, excuse you.
Check your MFD.
The team that I rooted for wasn't arbitrarily picked. What the hell, man? I'm moving over this way, and he just rear ends me. He's going, oh my gosh! The track ends there. I don't understand what he's doing.
Don't let them get away from you. One of them might make a mistake, and that lets us back in.
Collision with Argo? What are you talking about?
Okay, clear.
I don't know what's happening. So, okay, anyway, if I haven't exposed myself enough, my favorite team is Red Bull. Why? Why did I pick Red Bull of all the teams? Never having been exposed to Formula One before, starting in 2020, why did I pick Red Bull? I picked Red Bull because I thought, and still do, think that it is absolutely hilarious that ostensibly a marketing team that
We're approaching the pit window, and you're going to be on mediums.
sells energy drinks across the world has a competitive Formula One team. I think that is hilarious. Every other team has something to do with racing. They either make cars or they're already in other racing disciplines, like Haas, for example. Gene Haas, I don't know if he still does, but had a NASCAR team. And then obviously McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, like those are all car manufacturers. Aston Martin, Alpine, Alfa Romeo. Like, I just thought it was funny that this is such an outlier and they're competitive. All they do is sell energy drinks. And I know they have like a bunch of different things. You always see their sponsors on rally cars, and Felix Baumgartner, I think was his name. He was sponsored by Red Bull or something. He jumped out of that like near space hot air balloon or whatever it was, and that was a big marketing thing by Red Bull, and that's just what they do. And now here they are, they have their own power unit. They developed their own engine. It's like alongside of Honda and everything, but this is when 2020 This is when they actually like just used a Honda powered unit, and no other constructor on the grid used Honda. It was just Red Bull and their sister team at the time, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020. Oh, I'm really gonna expose myself here. 2020. Who was the Red Bull sister team? I can't remember if they were AlphaTauri yet or if it was still Toro Rosso. I could be forgetting one. They've been a few different things, but they're the Red Bull sister team. They have the Red Bull logo on them. They have a different color. It's basically a bridge between the F2 Red Bull Academy driver to a Red Bull seat, a real Red Bull seat, but beside the point. I just thought like that was great. So I started cheering for them. At the time, I did not know who Max Verstappen was. I did not know who Daniel Ricciardo was. I didn't know the history with Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Kvyat, let alone like guys like Mark Webber. Didn't know anything about their history. And then I continue watching. Oh yeah, Alex Albon as well. He was there for a year or so. And now they have Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen. Currently, as of now, 3-time in a row Drivers' Championship champion. 3-time in a row. However you want to say it. Back-to-back driver champion. And because I was a Red Bull fan, I immediately disliked Ferrari and Mercedes. Especially Mercedes, because that's when I learned that, in 2020, of course, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes win their 7th title in a row, drivers and constructors. And then 2021 hits, right? I'm so excited for 2021 to see Formula One come back again, and now I know what it's about. I have a better understanding of what's going on. It was still quite turbulent, getting tracks together and attendance coming back and everything. I'm supposed to be pitting this lap, I guess. And then the 2021 season happens, and it was a riot. Now, this is my 2 cents on Abu Dhabi 2021.
That was a fantastic stop.
How do I say this?
Okay, one
So,
stop to go. Just one stop left in this strategy.
I also wish that it didn't happen the way it did. So if you're not familiar, Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time in a row world champion, and Max Verstappen were tied point for point going into the final race of the season. Controversies and back and forth all throughout 2021. And then we get to the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi in 2021, neck and neck. And of course, Stroll goes wide. We get hit from the side. I don't know who that was, but we make our way through unscathed for the most part, I believe. Yeah. And the beginning of 2021, Abu Dhabi, final race of the season, the beginning of the race was no exception to the rest of the season, where, you know, there was debatable actions on both of the drivers' parts. Should something have gone differently than the way it did? You know, if, ands, and buts you could talk about till the cows come home. But regardless of what it comes down to is this Nicholas Latifi crash in the final legs of the race, where, I cannot remember, I'm pretty sure, brings out a red flag A red flag is basically putting a pause to the race. All the cars pit. And you're allowed to change tires at the time. Now, was this before or after? I'm getting my events mixed up. But basically, there was a chance given to the drivers where Max pit and he got fresh new soft compound tires. The soft tires are the softest compounds and therefore the fastest because they provide the most grip out of the 3 compounds provided in a race weekend. Lewis Hamilton stayed on the hard compound tires to not lose track position. And because of that, between Max and Lewis Hamilton, well, Lewis Hamilton leading the race, Max Verstappen in second now as I go wide in the final turn, so I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. There are 5 back markers, 5 lapped cars between Lewis and Max, first and second place. There are 5 cars between them that are not on the same lap as these 2 cars. And there was a rule, I don't know if there's still the same rule, but there was a rule where under the safety car, the lapped cars, all of the lapped cars, mind you, it may not be black and white verbatim, all the cars, because the rules are written in like legalese and unfortunately is kind of left up for interpretation, unfortunately. Like, it's not so clear, which sucks. And this is why I wish it happened differently. But basically what happened is, instead of all of the cars that were lapped being allowed to go past the safety car and basically unlap themselves, only the 5 cars between Lewis and Max, first and second place, were allowed to unlap themselves. And not only that, the race was restarted before those lapped cars unlapping themselves joined the back of the pack. And if they were allowed to join the back of the pack before the race restarted, the race would have ended under the safety car. The race director, Michael Massey, basically made it so it was going to be a more interesting end to the race, but because Max was on fresh soft compound tires and Lewis was on old hard compound tires, it was literally, it was coordinated so that there was only 1 lap left. There was going to be 1 lap of racing left. But because of the tire compound differences, Max being on far faster tires, it was only a matter of time. It was going to be a when would Max pass Lewis, not if he was going to pass Lewis. And of course on the final lap he did, and that's when Max won his first
5 seconds.
driver championship, and Lewis did not win his 8th in a row, but Mercedes still won the Constructors' Championship. But as far as like marketing goes and everything, what's talked about, that doesn't really matter so much. Yes, Mercedes came out the winner as far as constructors go, and they won the prize money for it. It's just that they didn't have the driver to also win that championship, the driver's championship, to go along with it. And of course, you will see the memes of Toto Wolff, the team principal at Mercedes, slamming his desk. The recording of "No Michael, no," or "No Mikey, no." I'm not sure exactly. He has a very thick accent. Slamming his headphones down. That was back when the teams were, I think the teams can still talk to the director maybe, but they shared the radio messages between the teams and the race director, so, you know, nothing was left up for interpretation as far as what was going on between the race director and Mercedes. It was car racing, it was motor like, people just went off with it as far as memes go, and, you know, offhanded or like knockoff merch with it, with the sayings and all that good stuff. But it was definitely a spotlight on Formula One when that happened, and I got to be a part of it as a viewer. And when I say I wish it happened differently, I wish the decision to let the cars unlap themselves was made sooner, because that's one of the points of contention that Lewis fans say, that he was robbed of his 8th world championship, or at least his championship for 2021, was because of kind of the shady reasons that Michael the race director, let those lapped cars between Max and Lewis go. They're pointing to the article or the rule saying that, you know, lapped cars, and it's supposed to be all lapped cars, but it doesn't. I don't think it actually says word for word that every single lapped car. It's worded weird and up for interpretation. And obviously, some more controversy involved, but I feel like that would be something that could have been avoided if the decision for those cars to unlap themselves, all of the lapped cars, not just the 5 between Lewis and Max, were able to go sooner, you know, because in that case, I would assume that if Mercedes knew that all of the lapped cars were going, because everyone thought that the lapped cars between Max and Lewis were going to stay there, right? And that's why Lewis didn't pit, because he had track position. He had 5 lapped cars behind him that were between him and Max, so he had that buffer, he had the time. And I just think it was handled poorly on Michael Massey's part, where he either needed to let them go sooner or make the decision to not let the lapped cars unlap themselves. Because when a faster car behind a lapped car, when there's a faster, oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? When there's a front runner, so like first place, is coming up on a back marker, those back markers have to yield to the faster cars. Which I don't necessarily agree with either, but that's for a different story, I guess. But they have to yield, essentially, to faster cars behind them. Okay, I'm going to quickly explain why I don't agree with that. Because if a faster car is coming from behind you, I'm not saying that they should necessarily have to, or they should, like, do all of the defending that they can in their power to keep that car behind them. What I think they should do, I mean, they should yield, but they shouldn't have to be forced to yield. Like, they're still racing too. They shouldn't have to give up the racing line. They shouldn't have to, you know, slow down their pace because a faster car is lapping them. They're part of the same race. And because that car is faster and coming from behind them, why wouldn't the faster car just be able to easily go around the slower car? They get DRS. If you're in first place and you are 1 second behind a car that you're about to lap, you still get DRS. So why wouldn't you have the pace to lap the car without assistance? That's my 2 cents on blue flags and letting cars through. But lest we forget, that's the rule, okay? So if those cars between Max and Lewis were not allowed to unlap themselves, and both Max at Red Bull and Lewis at Mercedes knew that, they could prepare for that. And that's what everybody thought. Max pit for soft compound tires to have the speed, and Lewis did not, to keep his track position, and now he has 5 buffer cars between himself and Max.
Hamilton is stopping now.
Okay, great. So if the decision to not let those cars unlap themselves was made sooner, you probably could have had more laps of racing left instead of just one final lap in that Grand Prix with those lap cars, which have to yield to faster cars behind them. So yeah, while Max would have had to have passed 5 back markers to get to Lewis, if Michael would have just made the decision that, okay, these no cars are unlapping themselves, however they are right now, that's the way it is. He could have made that sooner, the safety car could have come in a lap earlier, at least a lap earlier, and now you would have had 2 laps left of racing. Or if he had made the decision that, okay, all lapped cars are going to be unlapping themselves now, and they will be joining the back of the grid and we will be resuming, again, you would have had at least 1 legitimate lap of racing, and both Lewis and Max would have had the ability to react to knowing that all of these cars are being unlapped. Lewis would have known that, okay, Max is going to be right behind me. I'm not necessarily going to have as much track position as I would have with those back markers behind me. He could have reacted to that. I think it is 100% Michael Massey's fault that Max won that year, and people are upset about it. I don't think it's Max's fault. Max and Red Bull took the opportunities that were given to them. Was it kind of constructed for them to win? Were they nudged in the right direction? Did they get help? Yes, I agree. As a Red Bull fan and as a Max fan, I agree that it was kind of sided towards Max Verstappen. As a Max and Red Bull fan, I wish it was handled differently as well. I wish they were given a fair chance. I wish it was 2 laps of hard racing between Lewis and Max, where they both knew the situation and it wasn't just luck, if you want to call it luck, on Red Bull's part because of the decision that Michael Massey made. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, and both Lewis, Mercedes, and Max and Red Bull fans have to live with it, because it, personally for me, as I was watching Max win his first championship, I was not all that, I wasn't as excited as I would have been, as I would have liked to have been. I like to think of myself as much of a fair and objective person as possible. I know I have my biases and everything. I'm a human. We all do. But I can definitely see where Lewis and Mercedes fans are coming from and how that was unfair. And I wish it was dealt with differently on Massey's part. I felt a little gross when Max won as well. Of course, I was happy for it. I got the merch saying that he won. But also being so new to Formula One, I wasn't entirely sure what to think, because I don't know how usual something like that was. I don't know all the rules like I do NFL. And when I say like I do NFL, I've done some light reading, and by light reading, there's been multiple times where I've read the entire NFL rulebook. Just for fun, because I'm like that. But I haven't done the same for like the motor regulations in Formula One. So I wasn't exactly sure how to deal with it. Also, I feel like in F1 and racing in general, there's not the same, you can't police it the same, you can't ref it the same, you can't enforce the rules the same as something like football, especially. Just because football, you have a play, something happens, you basically stop play, sort it out, whatever. But racing is continuous. Racing is non-stop. The decisions have to be made almost as quickly as the drivers have to react to the race itself. So it's just a little bit different, if a little bit, to say loosely. Like, it's a lot different than one play at a time or one lap at a time. You know, you just can't. You have to look at the race as a whole. Which brings me to my next talking point. The Austrian Grand Prix in 2024, which happened today as I'm recording this, and maybe this video goes live. If not the day after the Grand Prix happened. So, it was a pretty boring Grand Prix, as a lot of people would say. It looked like Max was just going to run off into the distance, and snatch another win. Not win. And I agree, like, I love the Max dominance, being a Max fan and Red Bull fan. I mean, of course I'm not going to... There's never going to be a Max win that I don't like, that I wished it was somebody else. When Lando won his first race in Miami, oh my gosh, I was so happy for the guy. I was absolutely elated. I don't think you could call yourself an F1 fan if you weren't happy to see Lando Norris finally win his first race. Another great moment would be if Fernando Alonso wins another race, or if Nico Hülkenberg gets a podium or wins. Those are different stories. Anyway, when Lando won in Miami, it was fantastic. And now that he finally broke that barrier of 0 wins, he has had the taste for blood ever since. And I absolutely love that. I love that he's been pressuring Max. Like I said, there's never going to be a Max win that I'm mad at, that I wish it was somebody else. But I do wish that his wins were a lot more interesting than just, oh, here's another 20-second win. Like, you have to respect his dominance. And I'll admit the little bit of hypocrisy when it comes to football and Tom Brady and the Patriots, and probably currently the Chiefs, where it's like, come on, like, I can't believe nobody can stop this guy. You know, no matter what he does, he's winning, and I hate that, talking about Tom Brady. But you know, there's a reason for it. He is that for a reason, and it's not just luck. It's for something as long as it has to be called dominant or a dynasty or whatever. In both cases, it's obviously work ethic on their part, and how good the team is, and everybody around him, and the talent that each of the player and driver possesses. So a little bit of hypocrisy on my part where, like, of course I'm a fan of Max's dominance, and I don't like Tom Brady's dominance, but, you know, I can understand that as a fan, you love to see it. But I do wish that as a fan of Formula 1, it was a little more interesting. And that's what we've been getting in 2024. We've had now, I think, 4 or 5 different constructors. I think it's 4. 4. Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, and Red Bull are the 4 different constructors that have won this season, with George Russell winning in Austria today. All because of what happened between Max and Lando. So, as I stated before, I'm not all that brushed up onto the Formula 1 rules as I am NFL rules. When it comes to track limits, especially, when I first got into Formula 1, I remember seeing, like, the safety car or something do a lap, and the commentators explaining, okay, this is what track limits is on this corner, or track limits on this specific corner. And that was always confusing to me. I much like the rules now of all 4 tires, or if all 4 tires go over the white line, that's track limits. You're out of bounds, as you probably have seen me do a couple of times in this race already. But that's what makes sense in football. It's clearly defined what out of bounds is. baseball, basketball, you know, tennis, and like any other sport, you know what out of bounds is. There isn't an exception for certain parts of the field, like there was in Formula One. But now I'm pretty sure it's all 4 tires are out of the white line. That is over track limits. It's out of bounds. If you do that so many times, you gain a 5-second penalty. But now I don't know exactly how exactly it's all enforced, because sometimes it's, oh, well, they forced me off of the track, or I'm not gaining a lasting advantage by going off of the track here. And sometimes, I guess, that doesn't count towards your track limit penalty, because if you go over, I think it's 4 times. 3 times you get the warning, the black and white flag. 4 times is when you get a 5-second penalty, and then you get a 5-second penalty each time after that. But there's like exceptions, whereas, like I said in football, like if you're out of bounds, you're out of bounds. If you so much as touch a white blade of grass in football, you're out of bounds. But in racing, it is, you just need to have a marble of rubber from your car on the track, and you're still within track limits. Which, you know, it's different for every track, because some tracks you don't have as much leniency, like Jeddah or Monaco. You have walls where a white line would be. Like, that would be a wall. I would be going straight into a wall right there if it was Monaco type thing, you know, where the white line is.
Okay, gap ahead is
So
10,
it's
5 seconds.
every track is different, unlike other sports where every field, every
At the moment, the
court,
car behind is lapping
every
faster
rink,
than us by
you know,
another
is
second.
the same. Except baseball. Baseball's weird, but that's beside the point. It's clearly defined what's in and what's out. It's not so simple in racing. And that's just the nature of the sport. So what was happening was Lando was going off of the track in various parts throughout the race, and he got the black and white flag warning saying that if he goes out of track limits one more time, he receives a 5-second penalty. Well, he was fighting Max Verstappen for the lead with, 10 laps left. After each of their last pit stops, they were real close to one another. You could see it, the writing on the wall. Lando was on fresher tires, I think, and really concentrating in the corner. Like they said themselves, the commentators, this is the race now. The race is on. It's going down. Yelling timber. And they were scrapping back and forth. There's no friends on the track, which I totally get. Like, they're both competitors. They're both wanting to win. They're both young guys hungry to prove themselves to be established drivers in the sport. Max more so right now than Lando. He's had the team to back him, but Lando, in every respect, is a tremendous driver as well. And he has far more to prove than Max does. So neither of them were willing to yield during their battle back and forth. Now, there were times when, he's pushing me wide, or he's moving under braking, he went off the track, all these things. That both of which seemed the other was doing unfairly. And as just someone who's really new to Formula One, I really wanted to say, like, yes, this person is in the wrong because of this, or, they should have done this differently, or that was not okay. And that's just part of, like, I want everything to be as fair as possible in competition, and have it based off of merit, you know, have wins based off of merit. But because racing is so different, it's so high speed, literally, and the decisions have to be made in split seconds. And my ignorance as far as just not knowing that much about the sport and not having watched a lot of the sport compared to obviously the stewards, I wasn't sure what exactly was fair, what was within the lines. I only have the commentators to go off of who, you know, are former racers or have been commentators for the longest time, and trying to judge off of their reaction because they're going to be far more objective than the racers in the heat of the moment where he pushed me wide. He's moving under braking. Yeah, he went off the track here. Because they're obviously going to have their biases, and I'm just trying to gauge it, you know, trying to make my own decision as well. But that's the unfortunate part, where it shouldn't have to be a matter of opinion. It should be a matter of fact that, oh yeah, he is making too many moves under braking. He went wide here. He is pushing me off, you know, and have it be dealt accordingly and fairly. So when lap, oh hell, I'm trying to recall this exactly. It might have been 67 or 68. Finally, again, it was a matter of when and not if, they being Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, made contact going into turn 1, and it was clear, oh, Esteban's out of the session. It was clear that after they had made contact, Max had a puncture, his right rear, I believe. Right? No, it had to have been his left rear tire. Immediately went flat, and it was hanging on to the rim. You know, it was clear that his race was ruined. He's on 3 tires. He has to limp back to the pits. And, you know, it was just an unfortunate circumstance that he got a puncture. If it was something on lap 1, they wouldn't even have looked at it. Chalked up to racing incident. No further investigation. All that good stuff. But because of that collision, Max was given a 10-second time penalty, which I think was fair, for causing a collision. 100% fair. It didn't mean anything by the end of the race because he was like 16 seconds ahead of, I think it was Magnussen. It was one of the Haas's. And it didn't really mean anything, but he still got the penalty for it. And in that same in that same vein, Lando also ended up getting a puncture. It was a slower puncture, but eventually the tire just absolutely shredded and started tearing apart the rear of his vehicle, and the damage was just enormous. There was a lot of damage done to his car. Lando limped back to the pits, and he ultimately decided to retire the car. It wasn't worth going on in his eyes. And, you know, rightfully so, because at that point he wasn't going to be getting any points. There were 3 laps left in the race. I don't knock him for retiring the car in the condition that it was in and not continuing. He was obviously super heated. Thought Max was fighting unfairly, moving a lot under braking, pushing Lando wide, not leaving enough racing room, all that stuff. But because the margins are so fine and everything is happening so quickly, it's like it's so hard to distinguish when exactly someone is supposed to leave room for a driver. Like, okay, if you're alongside the other driver, you're supposed to leave room. You just can't shove him off the track. Like, okay, here comes Vettel here. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not alongside of him, and he's off. Like, I wasn't entitled to any room there, so he could take the racing line. You know, there were some questionable moves that Max had done during the race with Lando, where he felt that he was deserving of more room, or he wasn't, or he was moving a lot under braking and cutting him off, doing dangerous maneuvers, and it's like, it's far more subjective than it is penalties in football, where you can clearly see, okay, somebody grabbed his face mask, or yeah, he clearly was interfering with the receiver and not allowing him to make the catch or whatever. Or you know, current speeding in the pit lane, that is very objective. You can obviously tell he was going faster than this speed at this time, so he's going to get a penalty for it. Obvious stuff like that. Causing a collision is also quite objective. Like, oh, did they run into the guy? Yes. Did they make contact? Yes. Is there damage to the car? Yes. But also, if it's at the beginning of a race, they let it go, it's really weird, the circumstances. So, or crossing the white line, coming in or out of the pit lane. You know, that kind of dangerous stuff, they say, is something that happens, and people get penalties for it. You know, they serve their penalty, whatever.
We've got a lot of spare energy. Okay to use your overtake button.
And that's easy for myself and other new watchers to get a hold of. But, you know, moving under braking, or not leaving room. When are they entitled to room? How many, you know, when under braking are they no longer allowed to move? And it's different for every corner, every track, every circumstance, it seems like, or situation, it seems like. And it's just strange. It's just something that I've noticed. It's just the nature of the sport. But when so what I'm getting at is, I was laughing. I was enjoying it when they took each other out of the race because they were both driving hard. They were both snitching on one another the entire time. After, I think, I cannot remember who pit last, whether it was Lando or Max, but regardless, when they were fighting, they were bickering back and forth on the radio to their teams. Hey, he did this, he did that. He's not following the rules. He needs to give that place back. He went wide. There, you know, it's entertaining, but I could also, like, I can imagine, only to a degree, of how annoying it can be for their engineers. Because, like, what are they supposed to do? I know they can bring it up to the powers that be and everything, but then to the power that be, it just sounds like, you know, children tattling on each other. And I think it was totally fair. Not fair necessarily, like what they were doing was fair, but they were doing it to each other. They were racing hard against one another, and as a viewer, I enjoyed that. And I think they both got what was coming to them. I don't think that it needed to be settled one way or another. As I think one of the commentators, I don't remember who said it, but one of the commentators said that, you know, we don't want this race decided in steward's room 2 hours after the race ends, which we've seen before. I think Fernando Alonso lost a podium that way, or he gained a podium that way. I don't remember which it was. But yeah, something's announced hours later, and it's a completely different result than what we've seen on screen, you know, a long time previously. And that's not what we want. That's not what I wanted either. How fun is that to watch something happen and then you're told when it's hours after that, oh yeah, we actually ruled it a different way, and these are the real results. Like, that's not what I saw, type of thing. So anyway, I think they both got what they deserved. They were both racing hard, and that's the nature of racing hard. Is that going to change how they approach a battle on track with one another in the future? Maybe maybe not. Honestly, I know Max has been a super aggressive driver. He's always been a super aggressive driver. Lando had to have known that, and now he has the ability to be in that spot, fighting alongside Max. And this is new to him, and he's got to make a decision of, am I going to fight as hard as Max, or do I yield to him? And by no means should Lando have to yield to him. To Max, I mean. Or anybody for that matter. Nobody should have to yield to another driver just because the other one is more aggressive or they're unyielding and they're afraid to be taken out by them, because that's not what the sport shouldn't be. Only those that are aggressive enough should win, because they're all aggressive drivers. They all want to win. They are obviously
Okay, gap
the
ahead,
highest of their
6.9 seconds.
the highest of their discipline for a reason. They're in that position for a reason. So none of them should have to be yielding to another driver, which kind of backs up my blue flag thing a little bit, as I am in 17th, racing 5th place Ricardo here. But, we're in the same race. Why shouldn't I be able to race him? If he's faster than me, then he'll stay ahead of me. If I'm slower, then I'll be slower than him, type of thing. And that's just how it goes. But, regardless, no, Lando, I hope Lando is not fazed by this. It was an unfortunate circumstance, just like the multiple times that Lewis and Max came together in 2021. They're both aggressive drivers. They're both at the top of their game. Competitive people. It's just the nature of the sport. It's going to happen. And I really, unfortunately, don't think that there's a great way to, I guess, police it, for a lack of a better word. Like, how are you going to tell the drivers to, fight nice type of thing? If they're fighting and say only Max got a puncture, right? Say only Max got a puncture in that sense, and Lando went on to take first place. Then should have Lando got the penalty for causing a collision? Well, I guess I don't know. I really don't. If it only happens to one or the other, should the one that came out less scathed be penalized because the other's race was ruined? I don't know. Somewhere, and I don't remember if it was pertaining to F1 or another sport, but
Lost some time to the car behind.
I heard that penalties should be... Oh, how did they say it? This is... I'm trying to think of how they said it. It should be based on what happened and not the outcome. I think that was Rick's F1 edition. I think. Or it was Law VS or something. But penalties should be given out based on what happened and not the outcome. So if... Oh, God damn it. So if the same situation happens 2 different times, but their outcomes are different, the penalties should be the same. it shouldn't be based on outcome. It shouldn't be, oh, because you ruined this driver's race, only you get the penalty. Whereas if they're fighting one another and they both finish the race and they're both not penalized,
Gap to the car in front is 8.7 seconds.
but the same thing happened, but the others, one of their races wasn't ruined and they're not going to punish the other one because of it, you know, it should be very clear the expectations of the drivers, what's going to get them penalties, what isn't going to get them penalties, and, you know, it should be like that across the board, and that's what I think is fair. It shouldn't be a matter of outcome. It shouldn't be because, oh, you ran into this driver, they got damaged and ruined, and their race was ruined, and yours wasn't, so you're getting a penalty because they're already having a ruined race. Whereas if the same thing happened, but nobody got a puncture or anything, you know, if the same thing happened, but the outcomes are different, the penalties should be the same type of thing. But it's just so different with racing because of just how dynamic everything is. It's so quick. It's not black and white whatsoever. And yeah, anyway, I enjoyed the race. I'm excited to see more of it. Not of the race, more F1 stuff. Like I said, I'm a huge fan now. I've only been a fan since 2020. I would like to think that I am not. I know that I'm not a fan because of Drive to Survive. Have I watched all of Drive to Survive? Of course I've watched all of Drive to Survive. But I didn't become a fan of Drive to Survive. Or, no, I didn't become a fan of F1 because of Drive to Survive.
Okay,
I started watching in 2020, and Drive to Survive came out in 2018. That was the first season, 2018, 2019. And I didn't even know it was a thing. I'm not even sure when I first came across Drive to Survive, but I know when I first came across Formula One. And I quickly realized that Drive to Survive isn't a straight-up documentary of Formula One. I understand it is kind of fabricated. I didn't know that at first, but by the third season, so 2020, if I'm not mistaken, after listening to multiple podcasts, because I'm really into F1, multiple podcasts, videos, races, I realized that it's not 100% a reflection of what Formula One is like. It's a really cool insight into the teams and the drivers, the engineers, team principals, all that good stuff.
0.3 seconds.
But it isn't. It isn't everything. I take it with a grain of salt. I watch it for more fun in Formula One, to have another outlet of Formula One. But I don't take it as gospel as to what happened. I've been talking for too long. I need a drink. That's a little better. Oh, okay. I had to stop to get a drink. Where was I? Drive to Survive. Yeah, it's just another outlet to watch Formula One. Or to get a little bit more insight into Formula One. I wouldn't. I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. That's what I mean. I don't take it as gospel. But it's entertaining nonetheless. And yeah, so whenever I see memes of like old heads that have been watching since they were kids and, you know, when early 2000s or whenever they started watching, and they're like, oh yeah, these Drive to Survive fans or whatever. You know, I resent that. Yes, I'm a newer fan, but I like to think of myself as not a Drive to Survive bandwagoner, I guess. Say that. I'm an old soul that is just showing up to the party. So, that's another thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, thinking about more to talk about. Not that I ever need stuff to talk about because I could just yap forever. My mind does not shut off whatsoever. But anyway, so I have F1 TV, and what I absolutely love about it is that the archive of being able to watch old races. I wish NFL did something like that, where I could just pay a nice yearly subscription to watch every NFL game and watch archived NFL games, because I literally will put on old F1 races, and new F1 races, but I will put on F1 races to fall asleep to. I am just an infant in a 20-something-year-old's body, where infants like to have the mobiles above their cribs and they watch the little thing spin around and then they fall asleep to that. I am just like that when it comes to Formula One. I will put that shit on TV and I will fall asleep to it, and it is tremendous. I love it. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So I've been trying to not trying. I have been sporadically, though, admittedly, watching old F1 races. I think I tried to start in 2000 because they go all the way back very far. But I just tried to start in 2000, just get a grasp of this century. What has this century of Formula One been like? And just the differences in the course of the 20-some years before I started watching is incredible. It is insane. And whoa! Of course, that corner. It's crazy the amount of technological advances that has happened over the course of 20 years. And that goes for a lot of things, but we're talking about F1 specifically. And it's crazy to see the differences in broadcasting, in the race itself. That's probably my biggest gripe. It's not really a gripe with F1. It's just the nature of F1. How the teams change so much. It's such a volatile sport. As your cars are approaching. There are the Red Bulls. Right now, Russell is leading the race, but the Red Bulls, if the Red Bulls have, excuse me, have anything to say, they will not be outscored
Okay, blue flag conditions.
This is
clear
what
gap,
I'm talking about. Like,
through.
I believe I shouldn't have to yield to faster drivers, because if they're faster than me, then why can't they just pass me? You know? Or whatever. Anyway, yeah, how the regulations change throughout the years and eras. The engines, I know that some or a lot of people that have been watching for a long time like the sound of the older engines, which I'm totally not bashing at all. I totally get it. Whether it's nostalgia or it is a sound-based thing, because I agree they do sound really cool. Just the scream of V10s and V8s, and like, it's insane. Like, I've never been to an F1 race. I really do want to go to one, and it's on my bucket list to go to a couple. But I totally get that it does no justice to hear the sounds of the different engines, especially from earlier years, through the screens and through recordings. Like, just to have been there and just feel the power of the engines in the crowd has got to be unforgettable. And I understand where they're coming from when they say that these new engines, these V6s and the hybrids, don't give them the same adrenaline rush, I guess, as V8s and V10s, and I totally get it, but also I like to look at it, this is just my opinion now, I like to look at it as how much power they can get out of these smaller engines. Like, that's just crazy to me. That these are, I don't know exactly what they are today, but I know in the turbo hybrid era there were 1.6 liter V6s. And the cylinder heads are like 3.5 inches in diameter or something, and their stroke was super short, and that's why their RPMs are so high. But yeah, I like it. It's crazy to me the amount of R&D going into these and how teams can adapt from regulation era to regulation era. And I get where the nostalgia for the older engines comes from, but also I love how, you know, being V6s, how much power they produce between the engine and the battery. It's over 1,000 brake horsepower, and, you know, like, that's just insane that the downforce that they can get on these. Like, they're not breaking any speed records. A family friend of mine, he really likes drag racing, NHRA, and those things are like 10,000 horsepower, 10,000 pound-foot of torque, or I'm not sure. Maybe they're one and the same. But they blister past 300 miles an hour, don't they? Or it's in the high 200s if they don't hit 300 miles an hour. And they do a quarter of a mile in seconds.
6.5 seconds.
And, you know, how those engines have to be rebuilt after every race. Like, that's insane. And that's what they're designed for. Like, the wheels, they're fucking welded to the tires are welded to the wheels and whatever, and you know, that's a completely different discipline as far as racing goes than Formula One. And this is like hypercars and endurance. Like, they're built for their specific disciplines. And Formula One cars are built for a tremendous balance of speed and handling? Yeah, speed and handling. Like no other. How the G-forces are just throwing these people around, and I think I heard once, which still might be true, which
We're catching the car ahead.
the limiting factor for making these cars faster isn't engineering or design or anything. It's the driver is essentially the reason why Formula One cars can't be faster. Like if there was no regulations or whatever, and they tried to make them as fast as they could around the track. That's what I've heard. That it would just knock out the driver just because of how many G-forces they're feeling, braking and accelerating and, you know, laterally going around corners. So that's what's really interesting to me. Another thing that drew me to the sport was, I guess, the aspect of the amount of drag that Formula One cars produce. I forget the exact coefficient that the drag of Formula One cars produce, but I'm gonna go off track and let, I guess that's Lando. Yep, Lando passed me, so he's gonna pass me in the Drivers' Championship. I don't know where Carlos Sainz is, but he might end up beating us as well. But it is what it is. Anyway, obviously, Formula One cars are designed to be, or to they're designed to use drag in an effective way. Carlos Sainz just set the fastest lap. I don't know what place he's in, and I don't think my engineer will tell me. I wish I could specifically ask where Carlos Sainz is, because if he gets in 5th or higher, he will beat us and we'll lose 2 places in the Drivers' Championship. Gosh, can I please finish my thought? I don't know the exact coefficient of drag that Formula One cars produce, but you know, sometimes if you're online as chronically as I am, you'll see the meme of, this is what a cow's coefficient, or this is what a cow's aerodynamics looks like, or whatever, and how draggy it is, and a cow is more aerodynamic than a Jeep Wrangler or whatever. But by the same standard, like if aerodynamics, and I'm just, again, talking out of my ass, like I usually do. If they're saying that a cow is more aerodynamic than a Jeep Wrangler, and the only reason why it's more aerodynamic than a Jeep Wrangler is because of the drag coefficient, then by the same standards, a Jeep Wrangler would be more aerodynamic than a Formula One car because of the amount of drag it can produce. But that's just because a Formula One car can get to the speeds high enough to produce the amount of drag greater than a Jeep Wrangler would, and thus... Is that Lando Norris? Lando Norris is out of the race? Oh, that's huge! Lando Norris is out of the session. He will not be scoring more points than us. Okay, sorry to celebrate somebody else's misfortune. But yeah, okay, again, like, if it's solely just drag coefficient, and drag coefficient being dependent on how fast something is going, if I'm right, please correct me. If you made it this far and you're still listening to me fucking ramble, first of all, I love you. Secondly, if you know what I'm talking about, maybe I'll find the equation, put it on screen or something. But I'm pretty sure it is dependent on speed. If not, I know it's like cross-section or something. But anyway, a Formula One car produces a lot of drag, obviously. And it just uses that drag more effectively than a Jeep Wrangler would. So, I mean, I think I'm not incorrect in saying that a Jeep Wrangler is more aerodynamic than a Formula One car, but also a Formula One car uses its drag in an effective way to give it the downforce to take corners. Obviously, I'm not saying a Jeep Wrangler is faster than a Formula One car. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think if I'm coming at this right, Formula One cars produce a ton of drag,
Okay, we've lost
and it's
position. That's
and
us now
they
in
just
place.
use it effectively. Jeep Wranglers are just box because that's what they look like. For no real good reason. But Formula One cars obviously use aerodynamics and thus the drag to take corners quicker than any other car on the planet.
We're currently trailing our teammate
and that's
by
what I love about it.
0.6 seconds.
So earlier I mentioned that I was kind of introduced to real life racing through NASCAR. And of course, as a kid, I wanted to be a NASCAR driver or a professional driver. And then when football season would come around, I'd want to be a professional football player, and then football season would end, and then I'd watch more NASCAR than football. Because football wasn't on, I'd want to be a NASCAR driver. And it flip-flopped like that for many years throughout my developmental life. Or developmental years of life. And no doubt, if I was introduced to Formula One at a young age, that I would 100% want to be a Formula One driver. However, not only is it too late in life for me to start, if I had the understanding of what it took to become a Formula One driver as a kid, I would have known that at a very young age is when you have to start.
Blue flag.
And to not only that, you gotta get good. You gotta get good. But this will do more than enough for now. This is completely fine. I'm having a good time with this. We'll continue to have a good time with this. F122. I'm trying to let you by. Charles Leclerc. As we near the end of this race, my final thoughts are blank. So much said, but so little meant. No, I mean, I love the sport. I do really like this game, except I don't like how fast your cars keep approaching. Because if they're faster than me, then why wouldn't they just be able to get around me based on their own merit instead of me having to yield to them when I'm trying to pass Vettel and Zhou for places? Not that these places are point scoring or anything, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I'm gonna tap him.
Blue flag, blue flag.
Let's see if there's any other incoherent thought that I could come up with. Try to make sense of it before the end of this race. Looking forward to the rest of the season, of course. Okay, I don't have any. My DRS flat is
Okay,
broken.
there's a fault with the DRS. You will not be able to
That has
open the
happened
wing.
quite a few times this season as well. I might do more of this. I also wouldn't be opposed to like doing a my career, starting with F2 and working my way up. See what team I can end up on. The only issue with that is that I may have to shorten races because I don't play full games
Catching the car
in
ahead.
Madden.
Be aware, these tyres need to get
Like I don't play the full 15-minute quarters. I play 8, 10-minute quarter. I don't even know how many minutes I play in a quarter. Why do I not know how many minutes I play in a quarter? I just know I play less. So if I were to do a playthrough of F122 with my career, or my career, I would start in F2. I should probably do shorter races. So, sure. Oh, look at that! George Russell won! Congratulations to George Russell, he got 2 wins today. Nice!
There's been an incident on track.
There's an incident on track.
Looking to push for a safety car right now. Just
Okay, I hope there's not a safety car now. The race is about to end. We finished 2 places behind our teammate Yuri Vips. Unless I can get Vettel in these last few corners. Dive bomb! Hold on, I'm gonna retry that. That was not fair. We're gonna make that more exciting. Let's see if we can get Vettel in these last few corners to finish behind our teammate Yuri Vips. 15 and 16 would be huge for Zlocky Quicks. I tapped that corner again. I hit him again. It's alright. It's alright, and with that, we finish our 2nd season as Zlocky Quicks. Oh, we just stopped. What the hell? What in the world? This is new. Oh, congratulations to Carlos Sainz, the driver of the day.
That's it then, they've taken the win here as we wrap up another fantastic Formula One season.
I see Max right there, so Mercedes does not score enough points, so that will be Red Bull taking home the Constructors' Championship for this season.
You can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of
I hope, well, yeah.
Car,
I might do more of this down the road. I'm just making content that I would like, that I would watch. Somebody else watched it, I would watch. That's all I'm here to do. If I said anything that you don't agree with, why don't you tell me what you don't agree with? We can have a nice discussion. I should have said this at the beginning, but I obviously don't have a face cam. And the main reason is I'm not ready for that. And secondly, I'm shirtless because it's warm up here. And nobody wants to see that. All right,
championship leader is still sat at the top of the standings, but their rivals have made up some solid ground.
What do you mean
today.
made up some solid ground? This is the
amazing
end.
talents out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your
He's
driver
going to
of
Carlos
the day?
Sainz.
Carlos Sainz would be my first choice for this race.
Carlos
He
Sainz.
had excellent
Oh, we
giving
beat
him the
Carlos Sainz by
opportunity to
1
charge
point
through
if
the
I
race.
did my math
It's
right.
another
He got
title in the
6th,
bag for
which is
Red Bull
8
after a
points.
long and hard
But he got
fought
the
season. They built an
fastest lap of the
astonishing car
race,
this
which
year,
is an
and
extra
the
point.
glory
So
they'll
he
be
only got
taking back
9.
to Milton Keynes
So I
is
think we're
fully
safe. I
deserved.
think we got
Well, what an end to
6
another
in the
fantastic
drivers. Let's look at
weekend
the
of racing.
standings.
Thanks to everyone who joined us.
Sure
and we'll
did.
see you for the next
And
one.
Norris lost out by 5 points. He dropped a place. Look at us. Look at us. We got 6th. And the Constructors, Red Bull, 1. We got 5th. So hopefully that's a nice payday for us. So I'm going to wrap this up. Edit what little amount I'm going to edit it. It looks like Lewis Hamilton will beat me in this rivalry. Why does it say 1 race? I'm so confused. Okay. And as I kind of said before, this is one reason why I think I'm better than Yuri. Just because my acclaim's better, so therefore I would think I should be better, or I should be faster than him. But he did beat me in this race. So good on him. I caused $40,000 in damage. Probably that was all in the last couple of turns with Vettel. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it off. Maybe I'll do more of this. I don't know. But this is my obsession. This is what's keeping me from editing the other Mexico City Shark video. So maybe that'll be up this week. I don't know. I'm just here for fun. I hope you enjoyed. If you're sleeping, I hope you slept well. Hope you continue to sleep well if you're still sleeping. If you're working, hope you're working hard or hardly working. I don't really care. If you made it this far, holy shit, you are a real one if you made it this far. I cannot thank you enough for watching. But this was fun. Let me know what you think. If you care to, or don't. Whatever. I'm Fuzzy Viper Shark. Peace.